The ideas, procedures, and suggestions contained within this podcast are not intended as a substitute for consulting with a medical professional. All matters regarding your health and fitness require medical consultation and supervision. Welcome to the Warrior Wellness Podcast, a podcast for military members, veterans, and first responders focusing on fitness, health, nutrition, and biohacking. Our mission with this podcast is to introduce America's heroes to lifestyle habits and hacks that will help them live healthier, happier lives, and in turn, be fit enough to continue their support of their communities and country.
Well, Clifford, Stefan, thank you so much for being on the Warrior Wellness Podcast. And I'm just going to introduce Clifford just very shortly, and then I'll let him kind of expound upon that. But Clifford is the founder of Booze Vacation. We're going to talk all about that, what that means. It sounds amazing, but maybe amazing in a different way that most people would assume when they, just like with Fireteam Whiskey, my wellness business, it's like, ooh, whiskey. It's like, well, no, not really, but it's good for you, unlike whiskey. So we'll talk about, let's talk to Clifford about, where Booze Vacation came from. What the heck is this? Actually, it's January right now. I don't know when you're listening to this or watching this, but it may be a different month. But January is usually dry January. A lot of people, take a break anyway from alcohol in January. So this is, I think, relevant timing, this particular topic. So welcome to the Warrior Wellness Podcast.
Stephanie, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So I know right off the bat, just doing the disclaimer, like, womp womp. We're going to talk about how alcohol is not fantastic for you. But, if we're all honest, we know that already. And most of us can probably use some tweaking in our behaviors around alcohol. But, how did you personally end up on your own booze vacation? I know you didn't call it that back then, but how did that end up happening?
Yeah, actually I did, because it was kind of a good cover story. It made my friends laugh and kind of got them off my back when I was describing what I was doing, because it sounded like a pretty dumb idea to most of my peers. But yeah, just started drinking in high school, played a bunch of sports, and kind of during these formative years where you're having some peak experiences, went to college, got into corporate America, and it kind of just, very social, very extroverted guy, and very health conscious. I did a degree in nutritional science from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So I was constantly working on my health and fitness, and socially drank and loved it. But as I got into my 30s and then into my 40s, definitely started to notice some slippage just in my health and performance. And so, again, kind of tried to double down on my health and wellness practices. And the older I got, the more I was working on it, and the less my results were. So ultimately got inspired to take a 1-year break from alcohol. I listened to this Audible book, Alcohol Lied to Me by Beck, and it was really entertaining. It was 4 hours, it's pretty quick. And as much as I was really health conscious and, sort of educated, alcohol was definitely kind of one of those topics where guys just don't really talk about it in a meaningful way. And there's not, we're kind of a monkey see, monkey do type of crowd. And there's not too many monkeys out there that are, know how to navigate life without it, especially socially and at games and in corporate and things like that. So I wound up taking this 1-year break, and just had a really profound effect on me. Just, kind of everything got easier and better. As you get in your 40s, like you mentioned, and kind of hint on, it's just one of those things that you need to kind of take into account on how, the ripple effects of it. And I wasn't looking to start something out of it. I was just kind of like, hey, this is really cool. I got a really great experience. I was kind of talking about the book with my buddies and saying, hey, check out this book. It's really entertaining. It's, we all drink. You should check it out. And most of my buddies were like, yeah, man, I'm not drinking that. I'm not listening to that. They're really kind of put off by it. And I realized I couldn't even really have the conversation. And me being so health conscious and so kind of aware of my body, and also in tune with how guys socialize and how we reward ourselves and how we operate in this world, I kind of saw where this was headed from just a health and wellness perspective and ultimately performance. So realized, pretty quickly that, we're kind of in an echo chamber and somebody needed to be the asshole, kind of having these conversations and having this straight talk. Again, it's not about sobriety. We're not targeting alcoholics. We're realistic. We're not pointing fingers, but it's just kind of, yeah, kind of an adulting conversation that you might want to have, sometime between your 30s and 40s, kind of like your 401k. You learn about it too late, and yeah, you pay a dear price for it, and your savings are dwindle pretty rapidly on the other side of 50. So it's really ultimately just a health and performance play that in through some basic education and awareness. So that's a little bit of a long diatribe, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, no, I like that I love that you brought up the fact that, this isn't for alcoholics. Let's make that very clear. If you are suffering with a substance abuse issue, addictive issue, you definitely need professional help. But that this isn't about, we know that visceral response, the response that you got from your friends, your buddies, right? And we know like people listening right now are probably having that visceral response. It's like, I'm not giving that up, but I don't have a problem, right? That's that immediate like defensiveness that we get. And, from a psychological standpoint, right? So me being the therapist, anytime we have that kind of reaction, right? That defensive, like, oh, well, that's not for me. That probably means that's for you. That immediate, like, whoa, 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 like that, nope, nope, nope. That probably is triggering something within you. And that's why you're having that strong reaction emotionally to it. Because we all know, like, you don't actually need alcohol. Like, let's just lay that out as a baseline. That's not a requirement biologically for you to live, right? So, okay, water, you got to drink some water, right? We can do that. You got to eat some food. Yes, that's required, but alcohol is not required. So if that is so threatening to you to even think about, I mean, even the idea of giving it up, and you have such a visceral response and defensive response, that probably means you have some unhealthy relationships with that specific thing. And this is probably something you need to be listening to and thinking about.
Yeah, no, that's spot on, and that's really, really insightful and funny. And I've had this exact experience where I was in a white collar networking group. I had a consulting business for 20 years in Silicon Valley, and I was telling them about this passion project, and I told this woman about Booze Vacation, and she's like, "Oh, wow, that sounds really cool." And then I told her what it was, which is kind of a 3 to 12 month break from alcohol, and she's like, "Oh." Something inside me like said, "Oh, I don't like that," and she was intuitive enough to know like why did I think that? So yeah, you're spot on as far as, kind of it is a little bit of a Trojan horse, kind of in the psyche. And, let's not, I mean, the reality is most guys I know, it's so it's so a part of our identity and our peak experiences and our formative years. And so and as you get a little bit older and maybe you're grinding a little bit harder on your business, maybe you're not seeing your buddies as much as you'd like to, it's hard to kind of maybe separate yourself and maybe say, oh, well, maybe I should revisit this topic. But it could be kind of tricky and kind of a hot wire topic. But ultimately, yeah, this is about, being the guy that's still, getting after it and kicking butt and having fun and not, dealing with a bunch of, embarrassments in the bedroom or just, a bunch of prescription pills and belly fat you can't lose and CPAP machines and, kind of the non-glamorous parts of, oftentimes success, right? You're grinding on your business in your 20s and 30s, kind of at the expense of your health. You kind of get to some levels of success, and then, you start precipitating some pretty noticeable, impacts on your quality of life and your health. And so
Mhm.
this is kind of a common sense approach. It's not about just taking a break and moping around, but it's really about re-regulating the key systems of health that alcohol is so good at screwing up: your sleep, your diet, your gut health, inflammation. So many micro decisions around healthy habits, and overall just really getting your brain back online, because the reality is typical average guy that's having 10 plus drinks a week is they're probably 4 to 6 months out from getting their brain back online, because they're currently dealing with constantly like a shrunken prefrontal cortex and poor decision making, higher stress, higher anxiety levels, lower mood, and lack of discipline and impulse control. So there's just there's kind of a background of unease and lowered states that you're kind of looking to change, whether that's with vices or with processed food. And so it does kind of really actively erode the diet and lifestyle, which is responsible for 9 out of 10 of the most common chronic diseases.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you mentioned there many kind of medical comorbidities that typically go along with heavy drinking. And unfortunately, with our society, especially with men, we don't consider that this behavior is considered to be heavy drinking, and it's like, well, if it's normal, then how could it be abnormal, right? But we've made abnormal normal. And so unfortunately, we're not getting the cues from, society and our social, background to tell us like this is not okay, to sit and, drink a 6 pack a night or an entire bottle of wine, right? And that just becomes the norm. And you might be functioning very well, right? Everything should, feels fine, right? But what you're getting at is, but are you optimal? Are you really like happy with fine? Okay, if you're happy with fine and you're okay with that extra tire around your waist and the fact that you get erectile dysfunction on occasion, and you get winded going up the stairs, and you don't really like the way you look in the mirror, and you're kind of brain foggy and you're having some anxiety, or you're struggling maybe with some of that metabolic syndrome, all the different variations of things that show up with that. If you're okay with that, okay, well, continue, just keep on keeping on, right? But most of us can, look in the mirror and say, nah, that's actually not okay. And I'm not really happy with that. And if this is one behavior that I can start chipping away at, that will make a big difference and impact on all those other things, which is kind of what you're getting at, right? It's kind of starting there, but it's not just there. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to abstain from alcohol. Nothing's going to change other than that. What you're getting at is a whole lot of things will change.
Yeah, and being intentional and proactive about it, and realizing, and yeah, kind of taking a good assessment of your health. I think the realities, and yeah, that was super spot on. I need to put you on an infomercial, but yeah, you really nailed the felt needs. It is so good at just kind of eroding the diet and lifestyle. So sleep is a big one. Like I said, I think, and you were talking about, having a 6 pack and stuff like that. And again, as you age, your physiology is kind of slowing, your metabolism slowing down. You have tolerance, so you do have a tendency to drink more, but it doesn't really take a lot to really dysregulate, a lot of key systems. Basically a cocktail can reduce your sleep quality by 30 to 40%, or a strong craft brew, 20, 30%. So it's really small amounts can really have significant impacts. And that has significant impacts on these other systems. And so, yeah, it's really kind of getting a baseline sense and kind of making an intentional decision. Hey, I'm taking this longer break, and now I'm going to actually start, instead of treating myself like a junkyard dog, I'm going to start treating myself like $1 million racehorse. So I have to kind of know where I'm at, like, and regular alcohol use, and kind of, when guys are drinking regularly, they're kind of playing dumb with it. They know it's probably not the smartest thing, but I enjoy it. It's benefiting me, so I'm going to do it. And then it forces them to kind of play dumb with their health, because it's like, okay, I got some belly fat, I got some bad blood work, I got some high blood pressure. Doc wants to give me some pills. I'm not going to see him next year. Forget that. Like, screw that, And so you really, yeah, it's a really big paradigm shift, and it's really important. And ultimately, what it's about is leveraging that time, energy, and money to get maximum results on the other end. And that is by intentional kind of healthy habits that are actually pretty darn easy. It's just you have to kind of get that flywheel cranking, and then you get off on the other side of your vacation, and you stack so many gains when it comes to your look and your feel and your groove with your family and your performance and your sleep, just everything that you're like, okay, now I want to keep this. And so how do I kind of proceed with it going forward? And the other piece is that obviously alcohol works really well when you're regularly drinking it because it's regularly keeping you in negative states, so you're looking to change. But once you get from probably 50, 60% up to 100%, you really kind of notice the impact there. And unfortunately, most guys can perpetually get stuck at that lower levels of productivity and performance, or maybe at about 60%. And so when they're considering whether or not they should take a break, they kind of wind up asking the wrong guy because they're not anywhere near 100%. They're just kind of moping around, trying to get by. And so alcohol is pretty good at kind of keeping you in these negative states and always seeking comfort and changing of the channel.
Fire Team Whiskey is now found on Burn Along. We're so excited to be able to provide all of our fitness and wellness content right on this platform with thousands of other licensed and credentialed providers who are specialized in fitness, health, wellness, and even financial literacy. So if you've ever wanted to join the Fire Team Whiskey programs, now is your chance to not only get all of our amazing content, but also get access to hundreds of thousands of videos that will help you be well. Fire Team Whiskey is one of the exclusive providers on the Burn Along app. And all you have to do to go to join us is go to fireteamwhiskey.com, click on the link at the top of the page, and use that special coupon code we have for you to get Burn Along for as low as $9 a month. Yeah. It's that instant gratification, problem that we have as a society. That definitely plays into that. Absolutely.
It's everywhere, and it's rewired your brain to lack discipline and impulse control. And you already have tolerance, you have social pressure, you have all these triggers with NFL and corporate. I'm going to a cookout. I mean, even 1 year birthday parties, they're serving cold ones now. So it's like there's it's like wherever you go, it's kind of out of hand. But
And I think the stigma is even more so for men not drinking socially than I think there is for women. That social pressure, that manliness of being able to throw down, drinks at a social gathering is, there's a lot of unspoken kind of social pressure on men.
Yeah. And, obviously we're not targeting 18 and 20-year-olds, we're targeting kind of probably more guys in their 30s through 60s or something like that. So, the reality is when you're regularly drinking, your operating system is clearly hijacked by alcohol. And so you're like, it's going to tell you a lot of stories about why it's a bad idea and how it's so integral to having fun and how much it's benefiting you. But, you get in your 40s plus, and if you're like not drinking, your buddies are going to get it. They're going to understand, so they're not going to be like, dude, what, I mean, they might still give you some shit, but yeah, it's really it's a weird dance because it is, in a way, it's kind of a selfish move, right? Because you're like going against the tribe and, hey, we have these rituals and this is how we roll. And now Bob's not doing it. What's wrong with Bob? But, ultimately it's really about, so, kind of what do you want and how long do you want to keep it? And that's going to require health, and that's going to require, and that's how you're going to get your performance is by, re-regulating all these systems that you're dysregulated. So it's really ultimately boils down to what you want and self-advocacy. And then the gift of the vacation is you're going to get others to go along because you're going to be like, oh, he's having just as much fun. He's lost all this weight. He's crushing it in his business and on sports. And so it winds up becoming a little bit of reverse peer pressure. But you're right. It is kind of inherently, scary to dip your toe into it, but it's really mostly in your head. And it's all that
Mhm.
programming. And that's what keeps guys perpetually stuck. And that's the scary part, is that men of success, men that are doing great, men that don't drink that much can still have really bad consequences, in their 40s and 50s when it comes to chronic disease and life altering, kind of quality of life and length of life issues. It's just the reality of what we're living with today.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, going back to that, if if the requirement for you to and have any kind of joy or fun means that you actually have to, consume alcohol in order to get those feelings, then that is a big red flag in itself. Like that shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't be reliant on alcohol for you to have a smile on your face on occasion or to laugh, right? Then that again, for me as a therapist, from the therapy, standpoint, is that's the big red flag of, okay, well, you're using this to mask, what's really going on with you. And that's concerning, and that should be concerning to anybody. If you're relying on a substance to make you, quote unquote, feel good, you can't feel good any other time, then that's a problem, right? And that certainly needs to be addressed. And it's not fun, right? Like, nobody like signs up for these things and expects it to just be like, oh, yay, rainbows and butterflies and unicorns and everything's going to be fantastic. Like, there's a little bit of pain involved, right, in this process, and there's going to be some hard lessons and some not so great realizations about, how you've been maybe using the substance, because it's going to clear things up and it's going to kind of let you see the lens a lot more clear about maybe some things you've been using that substance to avoid.
Yeah, yeah, and that isn't language that we would use. And I have a minor in psychology, but I'm no means a counselor like yourself. But I would, to reframe that, I would just say that, yeah, it's super common to be habitually drinking. It could be very part of your identity. We could oftentimes drink more than we want, and it is having significant ripple effects on your quality of life today, your performance and your look and feel, and it's going to have significant, compounding results with your health. And so it's an opportunity, and it's a very predictive model of, you know, less enjoyment with tolerance and more pain and suffering and more negative states and more, waiting around for the weekend and not looking good and not feeling good and dragging ass and drinking lots of coffee. And so it's an opportunity to say, hey, not drinking and taking this long break is actually not a dumb idea. It's pretty smart. And if you're working towards something, if you have stress, if you have some bad belly fat, if you want to if you've been working hard and not getting the results you want, this is a something that you could do that can really move the needle. And it's not forever. There's flexibility. There's other substances out there. It's not like, and not like we need to change one vice for another, but it is, so socially prevalent. It is so good at dysregulating these key systems of health and eroding your diet and lifestyle, and it's found everywhere. So it's a sticky one. It's a tricky one, but if you could figure it out, most guys are going to like looking, feeling, and screwing better, and having the freedom to do something or not, versus like, oh no, if I'm not having 6 drinks, I'm gonna not be having that much fun, and so
Mhm.
you get kind of stuck in just, a real kind of a staggering amount of these negative feedback loops and these patterns. And so you're kind of just unconsciously oftentimes in these negative states, and then by the time you are kind of getting your reward of the drinks, it's like after a couple drinks, your prefrontal cortex is shutting down. There's no tape in the machine anymore, and you're kind of numbing out. And so then you're just chasing your blood alcohol level and kind of dopamine hits, but like, and then it's like the drudgery goes back down on the next week, and it's very predictive. And so it's a lot of the same old soup reheated, and so
Mhm.
it's it's a way to kind of mix it up and actually get what the beer commercial delivers, which is, you looking, feeling good, having good relationships, having a little bit more money to go on to some exotic locations, not have a bunch of stress and bad blood work and a bunch of BS. So it's a way of actually really kind of backing into what the beer commercial is selling, but isn't going to quite deliver.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So tell us about Booze Vacation. When people go to boozevacation.com, what are they looking at? What are they signing up for? What are your options?
Yeah, check out our website. It's really well done. It's a lot about a lot of education and awareness. And then there's free tools. There's a quiz. There's a free training. You can take a vacation for free. We also offer one-on-one coaching. So yeah, we kind of have high ticket one-on-one coaching, and we have tons of free resources and checklists internally and externally. We have like the Andrew Huberman podcast on alcohol that was really popular.
Mhm.
The book that I mentioned, Alcohol Lied to Me, that's on there. And we're also kicking off a non for profit, so all the bigger media presence and really kind of getting some of these media messages out there around the importance and baseline education and awareness of our kind of new version of the beer commercial. So yeah,
Yeah.
boozevacation.com. The U versus booze quiz is real popular, and then there's a free training video if you're kind of a little bit further down the line and you're like, okay, yeah, I want to do this, and there's some good information there. And then you sign up to take a free vacation, you'll get like really nice guides and checklists and all kinds of cool stuff. So we have all kinds of cool resources. Real happy with how it's turned out.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that Andrew Huberman podcast. I did listen to that one. Definitely highly recommend it. Just like I think knowledge is power, and when you learn about the biology of what alcohol actually does in your physiological system and how it impacts your brain and how it can stack up over time and really create, wreak it's like throwing a pebble in a pond, right? Like it's not just that drink. Like there's impacts along the way and all your systems are very important, right? And it's like you can't take that back, and that there's time that it takes for your body and your mind to recover from that. So it's not just a bad choice one night. Like that's going to be reverberations for days and days. And if you're doing that multiple times a week, then like that ripple effect is so far out. It's like you said, it's going to take time. Like you said, it's going to take months for your brain to even just like get back online. So we're not just talking about like, oh, I'll just go a week without drinking and everything will just be reversed. No, like
Right.
this does require some time commitment to really feel and see the results.
Yeah, which is what we're going for. Yeah, people cut back all the time. They do dry January. I'm not a fan because I want guys to get really good gains and I want them to get benefits. They're doing kind of the hardest part, which is the first couple, 2 to 3 weeks when the physical and chemical dependence is the strongest. And a lot of guys, are doing it kind of as a defensive play because they packed on some weight over the holidays. They way overdid it. They're sick and they're looking at the social calendar and say nothing's going on in January. So I'll mope around and do it. I'll have a cheat day and then, be right back at it for Super Bowl Sunday. And the only thing they learned was that they could do it and that it didn't change their drinking habits one bit, and they won't be making that mistake the following year, is how I typically see it. The one-off woman will say, "Oh, I did it and I kept doing it and I loved it," but that's typically, and again, that's kind of the difference between a booze vacation and somebody just kind of taking a break on their own. It's like booze vacation is an offensive play. It's not a defensive play. We know what we're doing. We're not making lame excuses. We're not back on our heels. We're taking these longer breaks and we're proactively kind of, getting awkward and getting after it and really kind of intentionally, making these gains and having some of these conversations and yeah, learning a lot about ourselves because it's very easy to just be busy with your family life and then you're kind of off balance over the weekend, but when you overdo it and then you're kind of catching up and then you're repeating and you're kind of just always kind of in the spin cycle. So it's a way to kind of give the body and mind a little time to reset and recover.
Yeah, awesome. So Clifford, who needs this? Like whoever's watching this or listening, right now, kind of like if like kind of lay out like if you blank or blank and blank and blank, then you need booze vacation. Give it a try.
Yeah, I'd say 30 to 60-year-old dudes that drink at least 5 drinks a week. Over 25, probably above our pay grade. That might be more alcohol use disorder. And if you're there, I can tell you at least 3 or 4 maladies that you have, but you're gonna have problems sleeping, you're gonna have stomach problems, you're gonna have inflammation issues, aches and pains, you're gonna be taking over the counter medications or prescriptions, maybe recent surgeries for, hips or knees or whatever. These are all like just big warning signs that shit's going bad. And, it's really accelerating the time of chronic disease, occurrences. So it's a fantastic time to, and I think you mentioned this earlier, it's not just about not drinking, but it's really about like reimagining and getting hundreds of health metrics back online by just really kind of cleaning up a couple simple health metrics and not be actively dysregulating them with the alcohol use. So guys that want to perform at their best and want a lot and want to keep it a long time, and it's an opportunity just to reset. And the longer the break, the more you'll learn, the more you'll earn, and the less you'll drink long term. But there's still flexibility. So not for alcoholics, but even if you're not drinking that much, there still can be some really profound effects, because again, you're stepping on that butterfly, you're sleeping a little bit less, you're craving sugar a little bit more, your schedule's off, your discipline's off, your states aren't really where they're supposed to be, your hormones aren't really where they're supposed to be. So it is creating a lot of negative drag and tax that you're just not aware of. You think it's normal, it's not. So we could definitely get guys, easily 25-35% better performance relatively quickly and with no side effects other than slight awkwardness initially.
That's okay. Better than the alternative.
That's right. It's gonna get a lot worse. It's gonna be really awkward when you have that awkward conversation with the doctor. So we don't want that.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I'm so excited for people to discover their own booze vacation by going to boozevacation.com. And Clifford, thank you so much for being on the Warrior Wellness Podcast and sharing your passion for helping, especially men, take this vacation and really optimize their health and their mental wellness and acuity and focus and performance.
Cheers, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It was great speaking with a counselor type. You hit some really interesting points, and I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Warrior Wellness Podcast. I'm your podcast host, former Army Captain Stephanie Lincoln, the founder of Warrior Wellness Programs. Check us out at warriorwellnessprograms.com. I really would appreciate you just taking just a second to follow or subscribe wherever you saw this video or listen to this podcast. And even better, if you leave us a review. That'll help us reach others who really need this information. So your honest feedback about what we're offering on the Warrior Wellness Podcast will help us do that. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.